Hey, is this thing on? Hello? Hit it again. I think it's on now. Welcome to Hiker Trash Radio, where each week, Doc will drag some colorful characters out of the woods to talk trail and Type 2 fun. If you're aspiring hiker trash, or if you're just looking to understand the hiker trash in your life, look no further. So lace up those boots, gnaw on some jerky, and settle into your 20-mile pace as we fire up the podcast from somewhere deep in the backcountry. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail, dirtbags, hiker trash, and of course, good smelling day hikers. I'm Doc, and this is Hiker Trash Radio. Hey, if you like what we're doing here, help us out. Take just a minute, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you don't like it, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get to this week's guest, a repeat customer and outdoor adventure rock star from season 2, Mac from Halfway Anywhere. Welcome back, Mac. How's it going?
Hello. It's good. It's good to be back. This is my first repeat as well on a podcast. So I'm glad it wasn't an empty invitation when you said one day we'll have you back. So it's good to be back.
I usually have pretty good follow through. We'll see. Hey, now, Mac, is it okay if we use your real name on the podcast? Or you prefer Mac?
Honestly, it doesn't matter. Either one's fine. Most people in the outdoor space know me as Mac, but it's not a secret what my real name is.
It's not top secret. Okay, so Tyler Fox. Tyler Fox, for those of you who are taking notes at home, Mac is an adventurer who has put together a pretty serious website with all kinds of great information. You want to remind us what that website is, Mac?
halfwayanywhere.com is the website.
And what kinds of information can we find on there?
Oh, lots of stuff about backpacking, through hiking, gear reviews. I got some stuff about mountain biking, rafting, just whatever outdoor pursuit I happen to be doing at the moment. Is generally try to write kinds of articles to be the kind of thing that I wanted to read before I did whatever the thing was. So lots of dense information generally is what I try to make it helpful. Less narrative and more informative, but there's some narrative stuff as well.
Fantastic. Now, where are you calling in from today?
I'm in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil right now.
And what are you doing down in Rio?
It's way too hot in Sacramento right now where I'm based. I first came down to Brazil back in 2011 and spent a year down here and just really enjoy it down here and have a great group of friends down here. And so now I'm trying to come down like once a year down here for 6 weeks this time. And it's winter down here, which is like just high 60s to low 80s, and it's just perfect weather and sunny. People here think it's freezing cold, but it's like, it's so funny. I went on this big bike ride the other day, like early in the morning, and it was like 65 degrees, and everybody has like gloves on and jackets on. But no, it's great. It's a really good place for outdoor stuff. There's hiking, there's running, there's the beach. I don't even really like the beach, but the beach here is pretty special. Yeah, so highly recommended city if nobody's ever been down here.
Wow, 6 weeks. That is quite a nice duration for a trip like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
That's the hope. I'm like, a week and a half in, and so far so good.
All right. When we were trying to set up the interview and you were telling me that you were 4 hours ahead of me, I'm trying to think, where in the United States are you calling in from? Because that doesn't work. And
yeah, right.
Now you say you're in Rio, so that all makes sense now.
Yep.
All right. Hey, Mac, is Mac a trail name? Did you pick that up on the trail somewhere?
Mac is a trail name from 2013 when I first did the PCT. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really think it's an interesting story. It was basically like I didn't meet anybody in the desert. I started late on the trail, and everybody I would run into would always be like, "Hey, do you know who you look like? You look like that guy Mac from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia," which I don't see the resemblance at all, but like people still to this day tell me that. And I was like, I got to Kennedy Meadows 700 miles into the hike, and I was like, you know what? If one more person tells me I look like Mac, I'm just going to start going by Mac because I'm sick of going by my regular name. And like I said, I wasn't hiking with anybody. There was nobody really on the trails. I was just like, and then I got to Kennedy Meadows. 2 people were like, "Hey, you know who you look like?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do. That's actually my trail name now." So yeah.
They just wore you down, huh? It was enough people said it that you're like, okay, I might as well just give in to what the universe is trying to tell me here.
Pretty much, yeah. And then it worked out because now that like my whole life has come to revolve around like hiking and the outdoors and all that stuff, it's easy to go by Mac and not Trash Panda or something where it would be like a little more strange if I'm signing off emails. So but it also gets confusing because then lots of times people think that Tyler and Mac are two different people. And so I need to, but
you might be able to use that to your advantage.
I know.
Hey,
yeah,
you know what?
Yeah.
I don't know what that Tyler guy was thinking, but
yeah,
Mac, I think that was a brilliant idea. Yeah.
Exactly.
Perfect. Hey, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been recognized out in public as being the creator of the Halfway Anywhere page?
Not in public, but like on trails, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But yeah, it's not. Usually people are more familiar with just like the site itself, and I don't necessarily have like tons of pictures of myself everywhere. If the conversation gets to a point where they're like, it comes up that that's what I do or whatever, then people will be like, oh, I'm familiar with the site, but not necessarily me. But it does happen that people recognize me or when I introduce myself as Mac, people will sometimes be like, oh, wait. So it's not totally uncommon. Yeah.
Yeah. Barney Scout Mann, noted trail angel on the PCT and author of a few books, one of which was, I think, one of the best memoirs of the PCT called Journeys North. He said it was his goal to be walking through an airport somewhere and see somebody reading his book. That would be like the pinnacle. And
Yeah.
I think he's had that happen. I think he said he actually had that happen to him. And so he was like so excited by that. And I'm just waiting for the day that I'm able to walk out on the trail somewhere, walk down in an airport, through a mall, and someone says, hey, aren't you Doc from Hiker Trash Radio? And that would be the pinnacle for me as well.
It's cool because you just have an instant friend. Like you don't have to go through the awkward getting to know you stage, or at least not in one direction. But yeah, no, it is cool too when people do recognize me, and which actually a lot of the people on the Hayduke, which I just hiked, which I think we're going to talk about, were familiar with the site already. So that was a cool experience.
Fantastic. Is there a section on the website now devoted to the Hayduke? Tips and tricks?
It's coming. I've done not a fair amount. I've done like maybe 3 or 4 posts so far, which were more focused around the stuff that I could address prior to starting. I did a big post on like all of the permits because you go through 4 or 5 national parks and all these areas. So that was like a confusing thing ahead of time. And I did a post on pack rafting because I did some pack rafting on the Hayduke, and that was like logistically like, where do I need to send it to? So there's some stuff up, but there's definitely a lot more coming.
All right. Hey, just to refresh your memory, because it's been a while since you've been on the podcast, we do have a segment towards the end of the episode that we now call the hiking hack, where you get to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. Now, you are expected, of course, Mac, to drop hiking hacks throughout the episode, but you will be on the hook when we get to that one at the end.
Oh God, I think I remember this from last time and it caught me completely off guard. And I think I said probably pack out your toilet paper, which isn't a hiking hack, but it's something that everybody should do. All right, I'll try to keep that in the back of my mind. And
all right,
and
we'll try and improve upon that one.
Oh, come on, that's great.
All right.
Trailblazers Toolkit.
That's right. It's time for the Trailblazers Toolkit, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company 6 Moon Designs. I love to talk about gear on the podcast, and I love to hear about the most important item in my guest's adventure gear. So, Mac, if you were preparing for your next adventure and I was the one providing you with all your gear, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? Give me all the specifics on that piece of gear and tell me why you got to have it out there. And this can be any type of item. It could be gear, it could be apparel, it could be a luxury item. So, Mac, what is that item in your toolkit?
That specific piece of gear, like the brand and model of the piece of gear, or just like the general piece of gear, like the tent or the sleeping bag?
The more specificity, the better.
Depends. What kind of adventure am I going on? Is this a 3-season backpacking adventure?
You tell me. You pick the adventure and you tell me the piece of gear. This is highly customizable.
Oh, okay. I don't know. My go-to, I feel like I overlook it a lot, but my favorite piece of gear, probably overall, that I use for almost literally everything is my fanny pack. I've used the fanny pack from ThruPack since my friend let me borrow one on the CDT in 2017. And ever since then, I've just been like, or from that moment on, it's just like, how did I live before I had a fanny pack? Like all my stuff for the whole day just lives. It makes everything so much easier because you never have to like take your pack off and get stuff out of it. I even on the Hayduke, there was one hiker who was like a super experienced hiker. I'd done a ton of hiking and she wasn't using a fanny pack. And I said to her, I was like, you don't use a fanny pack? And she's no, I don't really get how it's supposed to fit or with your hip belt and stuff. Like it's going to be uncomfortable, whatever. And I was like, you should try it. And then the next time I saw her, she had a fanny pack on. I was like, oh my God, you got a fanny pack? She's yes, I didn't want to say anything, but it's awesome. I love it. Yes. Like, I was so happy because I don't know. It just makes, I use it biking. I use it hiking. I use it like backcountry, like skiing. I use it all the time. Forever. I use it like going to the airport. Yeah.
You
So
you converted her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see people without fanny packs now and I'm like, oh, me and this person need to have a conversation. Like either they know something I don't, which would be like, I can't even imagine what the compelling reason not to use one would be, or they just haven't really heard how crucial this piece of gear is.
Right. Now, on your hip belt, typically there are some pouches there that you could store some stuff, but it's not a whole lot of room.
No, it's not that much. And actually, I used the new backpack for the Hayduke, and I had it specifically made without hip belt pockets just because I'm like, I'm not even going to use these. Like, one of my favorite things about my fanny pack, which a lot of people, I keep my phone. So, like, the Through Pack Summit Bum fanny pack has like a pouch closer to your body. Like, so a lot of fanny packs have a pocket in the front where you can stick something, but this pocket's like closer to your body, and then the fanny pack is further away from your body. And that's like where my phone lives. And it's super secure in there. It's like never even come close to falling out. You just reach down, grab it. Like when I don't have my fanny pack on, sometimes in town, walk around town, I'll instinctively reach down to grab my phone and it won't be there. I'm like, oh, yeah. So a lot of people use the shoulder pouch now for their phone or the shoulder pocket. And it just seems, I don't know, just getting it out, it just seems more inconvenient. It's just so easy when it's just right there in the fanny pack. And then, yeah, if I have hip belt pockets on a pack that I'm using, typically they'll just be like my trash can for the day for my wrappers or whatever. If I don't have the bottom pocket on my backpack, I'll just stick all my trash in there and then empty it out at the end of the day. But yeah.
Yeah. And so what kinds of stuff do you have in your fanny pack? You got your phone, you got bug spray, you got sunscreen, you got your snacks for the day.
Snacks for the day, I got my lighter, I got my knife if I have a knife, got my credit card or whatever, got chapstick, got my spork probably, got a bug head net maybe if it's a buggy area, got just like anything that I could conceivably like need during the day, like that I would have to take out of my pack, except for like maybe lunch. Like stopping for lunch is like the one time where I would stop and take off my pack, but just really I put everything in there that I can to prevent myself from having to take off my backpack and open it up. Because even though it only takes 20 seconds to take off your backpack and open it up, it just feels like such a chore. Oh no, I have to take off my backpack and open it. Jesus, like might as well camp. What am I doing?
Well, I'm glad to hear you got your credit card in your fanny pack because that comes in handy when you hit the Jamba Juice at the top of Forester Pass.
Yeah, it's also useful for cutting cheese if you don't have a knife.
Hey, that's a hiking hack right there.
There you go. Yeah. Everything's dual purpose.
That's right. That's right. All right. Hey, we're going to keep on talking about gear for a little bit longer with...
It's the hiking pole.
The hiking pole, and that is pole spelled with two L's. It's like a survey, not like the thing you hold in your hands out there on the trail. I always like to point that out because I think I'm pretty clever for coming up with that, and everybody's reaction is pretty much the same as you right now, just a blank stare.
I'm into polls. A big part of my website is surveys. So
That's right. That's right. So did we have the hiking pole last time you were on?
I don't believe so. I don't remember it if we did, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say no.
Okay. All right. So this is a 7-question survey that's going to help.
Oh, wait, we did. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right.
As soon as you started talking, I was like, oh, wait, hold on.
This sounds familiar.
This, yeah. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
So this is going to help me give you a score on the sanity scale from 1 to 100, with 1 being completely insane and 100 being completely sane. Now, there is an automatic 35-point deduction for anybody who's done the Hayduke. The highest possible score you can get is 65. Fair?
Perfect.
All right. Now, I do have 2 sets of questions. I have my hiking related questions, and then I have my big life, society type questions for those who are repeat customers. We can go any direction you want to go because it's been a while since you were on back in season 2. So you let me know. Do you want the set of questions that related to hiking or the other ones?
Oh, it's either or we're going to do both, or it's just which one's first?
Either or. You choose, and I'll dust off those questions and ask them to you.
Oh, God. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more risk of me ostracizing myself with the society question, so maybe I should go hiking.
Playing it safe already. Okay. So 7 questions. This is not rapid fire. This is you give me your answer to let us know which side of the fence you fall on with these issues, and also an explanation. That'll help me with my scoring.
Okay.
All right. Question number 1. Trekking poles or no trekking poles out there?
Oh, God. I don't know. My default is no trekking poles, but like I use trekking poles on the Hayduke and I use trekking poles on like really long runs. Trekking poles not necessary, but definitely some situations do call for them, but not my default is no trekking poles.
Why is the default no trekking poles?
I don't know. Lots of times, especially with ultralight backpacking, I just don't feel like I need them, especially ultralight backpacking on a trail. It's just, I was inspired to stop. I used to always use trekking poles, and then I started going to Nepal, or not started, but I've been to Nepal 3 times now, and I love it there. And none of the guides or Nepalis or anybody there use trekking poles. And at one point I was like, I feel so stupid with these trekking poles. Like, why am I using these? These guys are up here carrying way more weight than me, like with way like worse equipment than me, and nobody's using poles. Like, I just feel so silly, like such a tourist up here with my poles. You know, I look like a tourist anyways, but so I was like, you know what, I'm not going to use poles anymore. And then I just stopped. And then generally I don't use, this is another thing, because a lot of people use trekking poles because of their shelters. I'm like back and forth on the shelters. I have a lot of shelters that can be constructed with poles or set up with poles, but like I'll typically just buy ultralight carbon fiber foldable poles instead of carrying trekking poles and use those. But I can see if people are using them for your shelters. But yeah, on the Hayduke though, there was lots of river crossings. There was lots of just uneven terrain, and it was definitely helpful. I was carrying a ton of weight at times in trekking poles. You know what? I definitely saw a need for them and definitely would bring them again and would definitely recommend them, but not the defaults is what I would say.
Got it. Mac, that was question number 1. That's usually an easy one that people,
Yeah,
it's one or the other, and you're already breaking the mold. So this should be interesting the rest of the way.
I should have gone with the society question.
All right. Question number 2. What's on your feet, boots or trail runners?
Trail runners. Oh yeah, no explanation. I don't trail runner. I don't see why I would ever need boots unless it's like mountaineering. It's trail runners. Yeah.
Wearing trail runners up in Nepal?
Yep.
Really?
Yep. Okay, so when I did go and do a summit in Nepal, like I went up, I think it was like 20 or 21,000 feet. I was wearing boots for the summit push on that, but it was like boots and basically, if I need crampons, like real crampons, okay, boots. Like anything else, trail runners.
Got it. And what is the best brand of trail runners out there?
There is no best brand. I don't know. Whatever fits your feet. I did use Hoka's. I just, like, when I came down to Brazil, started using Brooks because I had never used Brooks before. So now I'm in the Brooks Cascadia, but I like the Hoka Speed Goats. Not a huge ultra fan, but people love ultras. They're just like, not for me. I feel like shoes is like the one thing where it's like nobody can tell you that you're using the wrong shoes because as long as you're comfortable wearing them, that's literally all that matters.
That's right. All types of feet out there that require certain things. So
yeah, I got super wide feet. So as soon as I see a company has like a new shoe and they have a wide version of it, I'm like, all right, cool. I'll try that one because I can't, unless a shoe specifically says this is a wide shoe on it, like it won't fit on my foot. I have hobbit feet.
Hobbit feet. All right. Question number 3. When it comes to your shelter, I think I already know the answer to this. For a tent, tarp, hammock, bivy, or hey, let's just cowboy camp.
I prefer cowboy camp, but if I'm not cowboy camping, then I probably want like a freestanding tent, or maybe not a freestanding. I don't know, tent or cowboy camping. Cowboy camping unless it's rainy or buggy, and then a tent.
Okay. Now, when it comes to your sleep system, do you use a sleeping bag or a quilt?
Quilt.
And why is that? Why not a sleeping bag?
I don't know. They're just lighter, I guess, is the only real good explanation. I would use a sleeping bag if I was going to be in sub-zero temperatures. If you truly, there's some companies that have 0 degree quilts, and I'm like, I think I want a sleeping bag at that point. Like 0 degrees is pretty cold. So yeah, quilt. I've been down in sub-freezing temperatures with quilts and been totally fine.
What is the brand of your quilt?
Catabatic is my current quilt that I'm using, the Catabatic Flex.
Okay. What's that rated down to?
They have the Flex. I'm pretty sure they have like a couple of different ratings of the Flex, but the one that I was using on the Hayduke is a 15 degree.
Okay. Now, when it comes to food, are you a stove guy, cold soak, or stoveless?
Stoveless generally if I'm by myself, but stove if I'm with other people.
And why is that? I think I know why it is, but you tell me.
If I'm just by myself on a shorter hike, that's gonna be like just one resupply maybe, or just like a couple weeks stoveless, just because less stuff to carry, less stuff to worry about. If I'm by myself, I'll probably be pushing bigger miles and just want to get to camp and eat whatever and fall asleep. But then when you're out with people, it's always sad if you all get to camp and you camp and then everybody's making their food with a stove and you're just like, all right, I'm already done eating. It's cold. I'm just going to be in my tent. Okay, bye. So yeah, and cold soaking, I don't know. I'd rather just go stoveless and bring a block of cheese and a tortilla and eat that than have cold soak, whatever people cold soak. The only time I've ever cold soaked is when my stove has malfunctioned and I've been forced to attempt to cold soak whatever meals I had to cook with my stove.
Yeah, it's always, I thought you were going to say it's always sad when people are eating hot meals in camp and you're not. I have
I don't
a
really,
little stove envy.
no, I don't really care about the hot versus cold meal. Like, I'm never like, oh, like, the only meal I ever eat on trail is macaroni and cheese, unless I happen to come into a nice dehydrated meal. But it's not because it's hot that I like it. It's just because I love macaroni and cheese.
So night after night of macaroni and cheese, that's the go-to meal for Mac.
Yeah, I don't get sick of it. I look forward to it. I'm like, oh, there was one time on the Hayduke where my stove broke, and all day I'd been looking forward to eating my mac and cheese, and then I was so sad when I couldn't that night. It was but yeah, every night, I don't know. I don't care. I don't really get sick of. I like what I like generally, and I'll eat it every day. Sometimes I'll buy myself different stuff. I'll be like, oh no, I'm gonna get this time, and then I'll just not eat that till the very end. And I'm like, why did I not just get all the stuff that I knew I was going to eat first? Then I could just eat it the whole time and not just eat it first. I don't know.
And it ties in with your trail name as well. That's another.
It does.
Yeah.
I know. I wish that was why I had the trail name Mac, but it's not. And I can't. Too many people have heard the real story for me to start making things up now.
All right. Question number 6 in the hiking poll: is life better above or below the tree line?
Above. Yeah, above. I don't know. It's just yeah. It's not as scary. It's more scenic. It's just more fun and exciting. It's one of the reasons I have no interest in hiking the Appalachian Trail.
I remember this from our earlier conversation. You're 18.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you said not as scary. Did you say not as scary when you're above the tree line?
Yeah, it's scary in the forest at night. Like above tree line, you got 360-degree views. Like chupacabras not going to be sneaking up on you.
Nice. I'm not sure where you're hiking, but I haven't seen any chupacabras out there.
That's probably because you're above tree line.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. All right. Last question in the hiking poll: what's more important, pack weight or luxury items?
Forget that. I feel like this is like a false choice. Are you saying like pack weight or comfort? Is that the decision I'm making? Because I'd go with comfort as being more important.
Really?
Like, not necessarily I'm not super big on check out people. What's your base weight? I'm like, I don't know, and I don't really care. I have lightweight stuff, but I have no problem bringing things that are going to make me more comfortable, and I have no sympathy for people who don't bring things that make them more comfortable, and then they're caught out being uncomfortable. I'm just like you made your bed. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not big on the ultralight measuring contest that it has become sometimes. If you're comfortable carrying it and you're gonna, especially if you're just out by yourself, if you're going out with a group and everybody's like ultralight, but you're bringing this like huge pack, it's okay. If you knew this going into it and you're not capable of keeping up with the group, then that's on you. But if you can, like, it's all right, you do you. Like, I don't care. Like, you probably have some awesome stuff in it. I don't know.
Okay.
And I carried a huge amount of weight. On the Hayduke, I could not worry about weight. I carried so much weight. Just, it was silly at times.
What do you think that weight was on the Hayduke? How much were you carrying?
I had with food and water, my max carry was probably over 50 pounds. I was carrying 10 liters of water 3 separate times. That's 22 pounds of water. But base weight with all of my gear, including my pack rafting gear, and I bring a big camera too, so it's just like I throw base weight out the window when it comes to like trails. I'm going to bring my camera on because my camera weighs like almost 5 pounds. So I think 26 pounds was my base weight with my camera gear and my pack rafting gear when I had my pack rafting stuff.
Okay. All right. Hey, Mac, you got to stand by a little bit here. I got to do some math. Take your answers and put them through the Hiker Trash radio algorithm. See what kind of score we come up with here. I got to carry the 2. We're going to divide that by root 5. Going to multiply by pi. And we're going to adjust slightly for the amount of adrenaline flowing through your veins while you were down below the tree line, looking constantly for the chupacabra sneaking up on you. And I come up with a score of 27.
I don't remember. Was lower crazier or was lower saner?
Lower is crazier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That seems pretty middle of the road, right?
It's one of the lower scores we've had on the podcast. So I think you should wear it as a badge of honor.
All right, cool. All right. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Absolutely. Get a hat, get it embroidered, 27 on there, and wear it with
27.
pride. Yeah.
Cool.
Very good. It matches your age, 27?
No, a little older. I'm in my 30s.
Okay. All right. Hey, Mac, before we get too far down the trail, let's back up a little bit. We'd love to hear a refresher on your background. Where did you grow up? What kinds of sports and hobbies did you play in high school? And how did you get involved in the thru hiking cult? How did they lure you in?
I grew up in Southern California, just north of LA, and really did not care at all about the outdoors when I was growing up. I didn't grow up hiking or skiing or surfing or really anything. I played football for 3 years. As a kid, played like soccer or basketball or whatever the sport at the time happened to be. But I don't know, I was never really like a sports person or a outdoors person or really any of it. It wasn't until after I finished school and I got this job at my friend's bar, basically over on this place called Fire Island, which is this like little strip of land just south of Long Island in New York, which is like just a summer destination. And saved up a bunch of money working all summer, and then met my friend's neighbor when I went back to his house in New Hampshire, and he told me about how he was going to hike the Appalachian Trail, and I was like, what's that? And I was like, oh, cool, you're going to walk from Georgia to Maine? And I had this money saved up from the summer, and I was basically like, that would be a good way to make this money last as long as possible, to not have to go and get a new job, would be to just go and hike. So went back to California and decided I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. But then very quickly I discovered the Pacific Crest Trail, and I was like, there's like the same thing, but it's in California and it goes from Mexico to Canada. Like, that sounds better than the Appalachian Trail. I'm going to do the Pacific Crest Trail. And then that was my first real hiking, overnight backpacking experience, and kind of just snowballed from there. I made some friends, and they hiked the CDT a couple years later, and then I hiked the CDT, and yeah, it all started with the PCT, really. It all started with that one conversation I had with that one guy in New Hampshire.
Yeah, he almost got you to do the AT. You were close. You were on the very edge, and then you found out about the PCT.
I was very close, yeah. I decided, I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to go and do. And you know what? If I had done the AT, I probably would love the AT, because most people who hike the AT as the first long hike love the AT.
Yeah, there are some people out there they'll die on that hill, that the AT is the best trail out there. They'll fight to the death on it, and others, not so much.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that those people think that. I think differently, and we don't have to agree. It's fine. There isn't an objective answer.
Now, you said you grew up just north of LA. What community?
This place called Thousand Oaks.
Yeah, Thousand Oaks, just around the corner from me, not too far away from where I am right
Oh,
now.
yeah?
Yeah, yep.
Where are you right now?
Santa Clarita.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, by Magic Mountain.
Spent a lot of time. I had a season pass to Magic Mountain for 3 years in a row, so I went up there a lot.
All right. And now, what do you do these days to pay the bills and finance your adventures? Does the website make you enough money to have you able to do that full time, or do you have to do some side jobs?
Yes, 18 through 2017, the website has been the full-time gig. Just writing stuff on the website, posting stuff on the website. That's all I do now. So my whole life is just consumed by hiking and outdoors. That's what I do for work. That's what I do for fun. That's what my friends do. You could say I have either a very bad or very good work-life balance, depending on how you look at it.
That's right. You're always immersed in it. That's the total focus all the time.
Basically, I struggle to function outside the outdoor circles. People who don't really get what it is that I do, it's hard for me to, yeah, but what do you do? And I'm like, no, this is like all I do. I just hike and go do these things. And then I come back home and sit in front of a computer and write about them. And then I go do it again.
Now, why do I seem to remember that you also did some guiding in the Grand Canyon last time we talked?
I was the trip leader on a private rafting trip in Grand Canyon. That was my first rafting trip, basically. I think it might have been just before the trip happened. So yeah, I basically won a permit to have a rafting trip, and I'd never done a rafting trip before, and basically it was my job to put together a crew of 16 people, including myself, for a month-long rafting trip down the Colorado. And that was actually a huge success. And I just won another permit to do it December of next year. So December 2024, I'm going to be doing it for a second time because it was a lot of fun. And I would definitely recommend that everybody who's even a little bit interested put in for permits. You put in for permits in February for the following year. Yeah, it was a really cool trip, and I'm excited to do it again.
Now, we just got back from Jackson, Wyoming. We did some whitewater rafting. It was very calm, very tame. It was on the Snake River, I think class 2, nothing too outrageous. What kind of rapids do you see on the Colorado and the Grand Canyon?
It's up to, I think they're class 4, like the Grand Canyon or the Colorado uses a 1 to 10 scale. And I think it's the only place in the world. I don't know. I keep saying that. I need to look it up, but it's definitely unique in its use of this scale just because it's such a high volume river. So the rapids go from 1 to 10, and I think the highest rated one is a 9. And so I don't know if that's a class 4 or a class 5 on the other scale, but there's definitely some big and scary rapids. And it's, yeah, you definitely get nervous before going through them. There's definitely some high consequence rapids in the Grand Canyon. The one good thing about them is that they're generally pretty forgiving. There's not like long stretches of whitewater. You'll have lots of flat water, and then you'll have this rapid, but then after the rapid, you'll just have flat water again. So if something does go wrong in the rapid, generally things turn out okay.
Okay. And that first trip, you didn't lose anybody. We didn't
lose anybody. We all came back. We had one boat flip. For anybody who knows, that boat went left at Bedrock and flipped. And then we didn't have very much carnage though, and it ended up being as good of a flip as we could have hoped for, I guess you could say.
All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, after hearing from the advertisers, we are going to hear about some of your prior adventures, including your most recent, the Hayduke. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. All right. And welcome back. We are talking to Tyler Fox, a.k.a. Mac, from Halfway Anywhere, calling in from Brazil, down where it's the winter right now. So very chilly down there, probably a brisk, 78, 80 degrees right now.
A little cooler today. It's 72, 73. It's
okay.
It's nice. It's nice.
All right. Hey, let's just remind our listeners of some of your prior adventures. We know that you have not done the AT. You've mentioned the PCT. You also did the CDT. Now, having those 2 long trails under your belt, there's a lot of pressure on folks. If they've done 2 of the 3 American long trails, that they have this compulsion to do the 3rd and become a triple crowner. You are shaking your head because you feel no such pressure in that realm.
I think the whole idea of the Triple Crown has become very silly, and this whole false pressure for people to do all 3 trails is just like, why? It just seems so arbitrary for it to be. Yes, I understand there are these 3 big trails that run north to south, but it's the whole Triple Crowner thing is just, who cares? People who know about through hiking but don't they'll be like, oh, I've heard about those trails. Where I'll be like, oh, you're a Triple Crowner? I'll be like, no. And they'll be like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like, I've done all these other things that, like, I don't care about having the title. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's just become silly and overblown, I feel like, sometimes.
Can you imagine looking down your nose at Mac from halfway anywhere just because he didn't do the AT? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's, yeah, if that's what you want to do, cool. But for a lot of people, there might very well be so many other things that they want to do, because it's such an investment of time and money and just everything to do one of these long trails. And somebody could easily do the Hayduke and do the Arizona Trail and do the Colorado Trail but they're like, oh, but I have to do the AT though, because I need a Triple Crown, even though I don't really want it. Why would you choose to do something you don't really want to do? Just some imagined accolade that's, who cares? You know what I mean? I don't know. I have strong feelings.
Yeah, let's start the conversation about a new Triple Crown, the Triple Crown of badassery. You do the Hayduke, you enter the Barkley. You don't have to complete the Barkley, just entering the Barkley and attempting the Barkley marathons. I think you could include that as your second leg on the Triple Crown of badassery. What would be the third one?
Does it have to be leg powered? I don't know. It's also hard putting some stuff above other stuff. It's like the Tour Divide is a pretty big badass thing that people do that I want to do, but I don't do I was going to do it this year, but I can't because of just logistics. But next year, I'm hoping to do the Moab 240, which is like a 240-mile race, I did a 100-mile race last year. And now I'm like, you know what? What's even longer than that? Like 240 miles? Cool. Let's do the longer one. So I don't know. There's plenty of badass stuff in every sport. There's plenty of, you do a winter Sierra high route traverse, you know what I mean? There's the whole idea of being like, oh, it's almost like marketing for the trails, but who's really like benefiting? It's like people are putting this pressure out there just like on themselves and on others. It's not like being propelled by some nefarious trail organization to like get people to give them their dollars.
Well, tell me about your 100-miler, because when did it cross your mind that, hey, 26.2 is just not far enough? I want to go a lot further than that.
I don't know. I've never really considered myself much of a runner, and a lot of people I know do go from through hiking to doing ultras, and I don't know, I just thought it would be a really cool thing to do. Whenever I see somebody do something and I think to myself, that was really cool, I'm like, I think I could potentially do that. That's the stuff I like to do. Running a marathon, it's when you're hiking, it's like you're hiking a marathon every day and you're like, I know I can do that. And I know, not being a runner, I'm never going to run like a sub 3-hour marathon unless that's all I do for the next 5 years is train as a runner, which I don't necessarily want to do. You know what I mean? It just seemed like something that was within the realm of my capabilities. And my friends who had run ultras before, I'd always been like, that was a really cool thing that you did. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that cool thing too.
And so are you saying that you have never run a marathon, but you've run a 100-mile ultra?
I've now run 2 marathons. Like I did. So last year when I was in Brazil, I ran the Rio de Janeiro marathon I just happened to see that it was happening while I was here. And so I was just like, oh, cool. I guess I'll just do that as a run. So that was just like a fun run. And then I randomly just entered the New York City Marathon lottery and then got a spot and then realized it was actually like a really big deal that like lots of people want to run it and an opportunity that I shouldn't pass up. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll run the New York Marathon too. So I did that as well. But I don't know, marathons aren't necessarily, I'm not like excited to go and run a marathon. Like I actually just today signed up for another 100-miler in April and I'm excited about that. That gets me excited. But that's, like I said, you know what? I'm not like training I'm not like a super fast runner, which I mean, you don't have to be a super fast runner to enjoy running a marathon, but it's something that I know I can do. Whereas with the ultras, this one I just signed up for has twice the elevation gain as the one that I did last year. And the fact that it's definitely something I'm going to have to train for, that maybe I might not finish it, like that is exciting to me. And it makes it more interesting as something that I want to go and do. The fact that maybe I'll fail.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of endurance athletes, ultra runners who they are trying to find their limit. They enter these ultra events to try and find the limit. They do the calendar year Triple Crown to try and find their limit. They enter the Barkley marathons to try and find their limit. And it's very intriguing to me because I think I found my limit. I've run 4 marathons, and I was not excited when I lined up at the start line because I'm thinking to myself, there's going to be a lot of suck involved in this because it's painful. But to your point about out there on the trail, you're doing 20 plus, you're doing 26 plus miles a day. And so that distance may not be too exciting to you. And now you're entering 100-mile events. Have you found your limit yet, Mac?
No, which is why I am excited for the 240-mile event. I'd love to do just a 24-hour or a 48-hour, a 72-hour event, or a winter ultra, or just, I don't know. I feel like I crave either that DNF at one point, or I don't know. I like to do things that not suck, but if you're not really suffering while you're doing something, it's like you're probably doing something easy, which is fun sometimes. But if I really want to try to push myself, let's try to do the biggest, longest thing that I can find.
Now, I've talked to Kevin Goldberg a couple of times on the podcast. I come to find out later, I just talked to him and Gabe Peterson about their fast packing of the JMT. And I come to find out later that Kevin is one of the premier 200 milers, one of the premier American 200 milers in the game. And he was just so impressive to talk to and hear about his training and his quest to find his limit. He has not found it yet. But what kind of training do you do leading up to a 100-miler or beyond?
Just lots of time on your feet, basically. Lots of just long endurance runs at a comfortable pace. At least that's for me. Yeah, I'm not out there trying to win. I'm out there trying to finish, which is, I'd rather be, I think of my Instagram profile, it says mediocre at most things, because I would rather know how to do a lot of things just okay than just be super specialized. It's fun doing all kinds of different things, but yeah, for the 100, it's just lots of time on your feet pretty much, because a big part of it is just like the endurance portion of it. You have the people that do it in nearly twice as fast as I could do it, but yeah, which I think the thru hiking really helps in that regard. Just walking all day with a heavy pack on, like, it's pretty good training. A lot of people will do ultras and they'll speed hike or just hike the entire thing, which a lot of them with some of the cutoffs, like, you can totally do that and finish it. And it's just like a super long day of hiking with a light pack.
So when you toe the line to the 100-miler, are you anticipating running the entire time, or is it, what does that look like for you in terms of your pace?
It'll be like running the flats and the downhills and hiking up the uphills pretty much, and then trying not to linger at the aid stations too much. But running, jogging, like, not definitely. I think my fastest mile on the 100 that I did was like a 10:30 or 11-minute mile or something, which was too fast. Like, my goal pace was like 14:30, which is like slightly faster than a speed walk, or maybe some people speed walk. So it's a lot of people like run 100 miles. I'm like, listen, like, when you're imagining running, like, you imagine like a soccer player, like, running down the field, like, that's not what I'm doing for 100 miles. Like, yes, there are some people who do that. I am not that person. Like, nor will I be that person.
That's right. And what kind of caloric intake do you need to have on a 100-mile ultra?
Oh God, I don't know. Probably a lot more than I tried every 30 or 45 minutes to be eating like at least like a gel pack at the very least. But one thing I learned before, or a piece of advice that everybody gets, no new things on race day, as far as like the things that you're doing, train how you're going to race. So I limited myself in my training as far as like the foods that I ate. So when it did come to race day, I was like, oh no, like, I can only eat gels and energy blocks. And when I got towards the end, like, not the end, but I don't know, the last third of the race, at some of the aid stations, they did have like like really good. They had like bacon and eggs and sandwiches and just all kinds of stuff. And it got to a point where I was just like, I don't even care anymore. I'm eating a sandwich. I'm eating a piece of pizza. I'm so sick of this gel pack.
How many hours of gel packs is that? How long is an ultra for you? A 100-mile ultra?
I did it in 25, just under 26 hours was mine. So
I can't imagine gel packs for 26 hours. In fact, you said every 34 minutes you try and eat. And I was thinking you're going to go with a burrito. And you said gel pack, and that just really turned my stomach a little bit.
there are some good gel packs, but there are also some horrible gel packs. It got to the point where some of the flavors I like would nearly vomit just from the taste of the gel pack. And I had to say to my crew, I was like, listen, you got to take all of these flavor gel packs out of all of my future resupplies and replace them because I cannot eat these anymore. They're so gross.
Now, there are some other races out there that are 200 miles. The Moab 240. I think the Cocodona is 200 plus miles.
Yeah.
What is Badwater?
I think Badwater is like 140 something or 160 something. I think it's under 200.
Okay. I think
There's a Tahoe 200 and then there's the Bigfoot
I was going to say
200.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Badwater I have no interest in. I do not thrive in the heat. The heat kills me, which is one of the reasons I am fleeing the heat right now and I'm down in the South American winter. But I do really well in the cold. Like I said, I would love to do, I say now I would love to do, who knows if I actually did it, but winter ultra somewhere.
The Antarctic 240 would be a good race for you.
Yeah. Except the only thing with, I guess you'd probably do it in the Antarctic summer, which, would be cool because it'd be like 24 hours of daylight. But yeah, the heat kills me. I do love the cold. Once I'm moving in the cold, I can be in a short and t-shirt. And as long as it's not like brutal wind chill, I'll be fine.
All right. Hey, let's transition. You use the word suffering as a good segue. Let's talk about the Hayduke Trail. Before we get into your adventures on the Hayduke, give our listeners some insight into what the Hayduke is all about, because I think maybe for those who are not familiar with the Hayduke, they might think it's just this trail in Utah that is not nearly as long as the PCT or the CDT. How bad could it be?
Yeah, so the Hayduke Trail is like a misnomer because it's definitely not a trail. It's a route at its core. There are lots of pieces of it that do follow existing trails or Jeep roads, but a lot of it is just off-trail cross-country navigation. And it snakes its way through Utah. It goes from Arches to Zion and does dip down into Grand Canyon National Park for a good chunk. I think it's close to 150 miles that are in Arizona, but it literally snakes its way across southern Utah. Most people go east to west from Arches to Zion. And yeah, there's not like a trail there's not a Hayduke Trail organization or anything like that. It's basically a route that I believe these two guys put together whose names are escaping me right now. And it's just slowly grown in popularity over the last however many years since they first established it, I guess you could say. But yeah, it hits Arches National Park, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, Bryce, Zion, Grand Canyon, and then a ton of just wilderness areas down in southern Utah as well. And goes through some like really remote places. There's just southern Utah is already pretty just remote as it is, but there's some stretches where you're just really far out there.
Now, in preparation for the Hayduke, because you're getting ready to do this, what kind of research did you do? Did you watch I think there's a documentary on YouTube called Figuring It Out on the Hayduke, or maybe it's not YouTube, maybe it's some other platform.
I watched that a couple years ago. I remember I watched that. I was doing rim to rim, and the day I was going to do it like rained, so I had to sleep in my car another night at the south rim of Grand Canyon, and I think I watched it in my car that night, but I don't really remember it. But basically, I had friends that did it, and that was a lot of things. If I don't discover them on my own, I'll have some friend that does it. I'm just like, wow, that's a really cool thing you did. Cool, I want to do that thing too. So that's where it first popped up on my radar as like something that like, oh, maybe I'll go and do this, because they had nothing but good things to say about it overall.
Now, when you did the PCT, the JMT, CDT, I guess the CDT probably involves some route finding, but those other two, the PCT and the JMT, very clear where you are on the trail, unless it's obscured by snow. But never a lot of doubt as to, am I on the trail? Am I off the trail? Am I going the right direction or not? What kind
Yeah.
of route finding or navigation preparation did you do leading up to Hayduke?
The biggest prep that I did was just try to get everything loaded onto like a GPX on my phone pretty much. So just like waypoints and data and just built everything into my phone. I did end up printing a set of paper maps that I literally never used. But at a certain point, I think it was like a couple weeks in, I had this moment where I was just somewhere looking at my phone and I remembered in the past I had technical issues with my phone or whatever. And I was just like, wow, what if my phone just stopped working right now? I'd probably be like screwed because it's difficult to navigate out here. So I actually that's why I had 4 battery packs with me because I was horrified that something would happen to one of them or whatever. And then I actually ended up carrying a backup phone with all of my maps also downloaded because usually if I'm hiking with somebody else, it's like they are my backup. But I was out there all by myself and I was like, wait a second, hold on. I have no real, like my paper map's okay, but that's not really, they're going to help me a little bit, but I'm not going to be able to continue the trail necessarily just with these. So yeah, I actually had to wait an extra day in one of the towns for a phone, like an extra phone to get shipped out to me. So I and I never ended up having to use it, which was good, but knowing that I had it really gave me that like extra level of security to know that, okay, I do have a backup. And because I never want to be like the person who something happens to and it's just, oh, that guy was an idiot. Why did he do that? Yeah, I never really had that moment on a trail before. So that was definitely something new.
That's like the epitome of packing your fears. The perfect example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what other type of gear did you pack? What did you have in your backpack going out onto the Hayduke?
Pretty standard, just like 3-season backpacking stuff. I had a 15-degree quilt, which ended up being perfect because it was literally sub-zero temperatures when I started. My water was freezing overnight, and then I had 90+ degree temperatures down in Grand Canyon. So having the flexibility of having that quilt and being able to open it up was really nice. I had a freestanding tent. I was the only person I think that I met on the trail that had a freestanding tent and didn't use it every night. But when I did use it, I was very happy I had it. And I had some people towards the end of the trail that were like, yeah, we're a little jealous every time. I'm like, I know, it's pretty nice. Like when you need it because just lots of sand. I got snowed on once overnight. That was pretty brutal. And then standard array. I brought some extra socks. I brought 4 pairs of socks, I think, total, because there's just so much sand and water and just, I don't know. I really value deeply just being able to put on a clean pair of socks. It's so nice. And then, yeah, I did bring a pack raft and pack rafting equipment for 3 separate sections. Pack raft, PFD, paddle.
How much did that weigh?
That all of the pack rafting stuff altogether weighed, I think, 5 or 5.5 pounds, between 5 and 6 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah. The pack raft was 3.5 pounds. The paddle was like 14 or 15 ounces. And then the PFD was 12 ounces. So yeah, I think just under 6 pounds was all of that.
Okay, I guess I need you to define for me, what is a pack raft? Because in my mind, I'm thinking of this 8-person raft that you're taking down the river. That is not.
No, it rolls up to be maybe the size of just the size of a sleeping bag. There was a point where I carried it down in the bottom of my backpack. Usually I had it just strapped on the top, but it packs down to be the size of a sleeping bag and blows up to be pretty long. I don't know, maybe 8 feet long was how long the pack raft I had was when it was completely inflated. And yeah, it's pretty impressive how something so tiny can become something so big. It was pretty cool. And the fact that it only weighed 3.5 pounds, which is less than my camera, made it nice to have. But the pack rafting ended up being a little contrived, and I definitely wouldn't recommend it to anybody who's hiking the Hayduke.
I know you mentioned running into other people out there who didn't have freestanding tents. Were you the only person, in addition to being the only person having a freestanding tent, were you the only person out there with a pack raft?
Also the only person with a pack raft. Yeah.
So on the gear survey for the Hayduke this year, both those are going to be towards the bottom.
Yeah, I don't know that there's necessarily enough people on the Hayduke to conduct a meaningful survey, but yeah, they would definitely be at the very bottom.
All right. Now, did you hike it east to west or west to east?
I hiked it east to west. I started in Arches and finished in Zion.
Okay. How many miles is the Hayduke?
It's 800 something miles because there's so many alternates and so many detours and so many. I actually have yet to go through and add up exactly how many miles I ended up hiking, but I would predict it somewhere around 850 miles.
Okay. And what was your start date and finish date?
I think the first day I was hiking was March 29th, I think was my start date. And then my finish date was May 30th, maybe May 31st, I think. And I actually did take a week off towards the end because this year was such a big snow year on the West Coast and also in Utah that there was a lot of concern about the water levels for the creeks in Grand Canyon. So basically took a week off, and all the people I was hiking around also took a week off to let those creek levels die down a little bit. And then I actually ended up going on a rafting trip on the Green River in Utah during that week off and came back, and only one of the rivers, it ended up being a good thing that we took that time off because people ahead of us got turned around by a river. We almost got turned around by a river or a creek and ended up being able to get across it. And then we had to bypass one other creek because it was still too high to cross. But yeah, altogether, it ended up being, actually don't know, I have to calculate how many days of actually hiking, but I think it was 50 something days of actually hiking.
Okay. So less than 2 months in pretty remote, rugged territory.
Yeah, so there was a lot of sections that were very slow going, and then a lot of sections that were very easy going, I guess you could say. Because one thing about the Hayduke is there's not a ton of elevation gain on the Hayduke. There was one day I did something like, I think more than 30 miles, and I only had 1,000 feet of elevation gain across 30 miles, which is like literally, if you spread that out evenly over the 30 miles, that could just feel like your GPS's error, like your elevation. It was nothing. So yeah, there were some days that were just super cruisy. You're just walking up a wash through a canyon, I don't know. And then some days that were definitely a lot slower going.
So you had some friends that had hiked the Hayduke and told you about it. Did the reality of the Hayduke meet your expectations, or did you encounter something completely different, unexpected?
What they told me met my expectations. I think I've said a couple times that it definitely met my expectations, but then a lot of people make it out to be like really, I had this idea that it was just going to be this like crazy challenging, like every day you're scrambling up canyons and doing crazy route finding in and out of just washes and just dropping down into slots and climbing up out of slots. And it really wasn't a lot of that. There was like very few points where it was like, oh, okay, I need to climb up this, or this is very exposed or very dangerous, or like, how do I really get down into this canyon? That was definitely something I was expecting that didn't end up being the reality, but just the remoteness of it and the how much I ended up liking it. People really talk it up a lot. Oh, everybody, I don't know, I've yet to meet somebody who hiked the Hayduke and they're like, oh, I hated it. I would never hike the Hayduke again. It's like, there were times where I was just like, man, this is boring. But overall, I'm like, oh yeah, I would definitely probably hike the Hayduke again. Like, it was a really cool trail.
Did you ever find yourself in situations where you're like, what am I going to do here? Like, how do I get around this? How do I find a way forward?
Honestly, like, not really, because it's there were a couple times where you're in that situation, but you know where to go. Like, you can see, like, it's obviously here, and you're just like, I guess this is what I have to do because this is literally the only option. But you're like, is this the only option? And you're like, no, this is definitely what I have to do. So, I mean, the one thing that there's one part where you have to drop down into this slot, and it's a pretty far drop. It's like, I don't know, maybe 15 feet or something, or maybe more, and it's definitely too far to just jump from the top. And you get to it and you're like, is this where I go? And you're like, this has to be where I go. Like, where else would I go? And I could see like footprints at the bottom. So I'm like, all right, this is definitely where I have to go. But, like, stuff like that was the kind of stuff that I imagined every day I was going to be doing. But yeah, you get to that point, and then generally, even lots of times there's even, so that specific spot I'm talking about, there's even like an alternate that you can hike around and go down this other arm of the canyon to get into it. But yeah, you definitely generally know what you have to do. And You either just have to do it or turn around or do an alternate or yeah.
Any type 2 adventures out there for you?
On the Hayduke?
On the Hayduke, yeah.
Anytime I was hiking through the snow, definitely. And when I got to Bryce, it basically follows the Under the Rim Trail in Bryce Canyon National Park the whole way. And there was still a lot of snow, and there was a low route that you could have taken that everybody else took. And I was like, no, I want to hike the whole Under the Rim Trail. And so I stayed on the Under the Rim Trail, and it was horrible. There was so much snow. I was just post-holing through crusty ice down to my waist on a slope. It was not fun at all. It was like one of those times where I would just be like screaming by myself, just in frustration, making the slowest progress ever, being like, why didn't I take the low route like everybody else did? It's not even that scenic up here. Part of Bryce is the north part of Bryce, I think, which is where the amphitheater is, which is like where everybody goes hiking if you're just going to do a day hike or something. And then further south, it's just kind of more of the same, and then kind of just, whatever, stuff like that. I had to skip the high point of the trail, which is in the Henrys, because of snow and thunderstorms and thunder snow. So that was more post-holing, just ripping up my legs. Very fun. Yeah, really the snow was like not expected. I guess it was expected because I knew that's one of the things. People either do it in the springtime or in the fall. And the springtime, you have the benefit of there being more reliable water sources, but then you also have to deal with potentially higher creeks or snow in certain places. And I definitely had to deal with a lot of that.
Man, it's unfortunate that you already picked up a trail name, Mac. We could have had your trail name be Thunder Snow. How cool would that be?
Thunder Snow's pretty intense. Not as intense as the thunder smoke from fires. I don't know what you call that, but yeah, definitely getting there.
All right. Now, you say that or at least you implied to me that you fell in love with the Hayduke. This is not something that you just don't find a lot of people out there who despise it after they do it. What is there to fall in love with the Hayduke? It sounds very difficult.
One of my favorite things about it was it reminded me of the Pacific Crest Trail back in 2013, where it was people in like trail towns and stuff were familiar with the trail, but there weren't so many people on the trail that those people couldn't necessarily have like an interaction with all of the hikers. You'd get to a place and they'd just be like super hiker friendly and let people just all hang out inside and talk to you one-on-one, and just the kind of thing that becomes impossible if there's 50, 60, 70 people coming through every single day. So it was cool just being able to have those interactions with people in towns along the trail. And then just like it really is like people say the Continental Divide Trail is a choose your own adventure trail because there's just so many alternates and stuff. The Hayduke truly is a choose your own adventure trail. You could hike the entire Hayduke 2 times and have less than, I don't know, you could hike the Hayduke twice and maybe overlap only 20% of what you hiked the first time with what you hiked the second time, just because there's so many different ways that you can get across everything. There's definitely things that I bypassed and chose to go one way instead of another way that I want to go back and just hike that one section.
All right. Hey, congratulations on completing the Hayduke. Sounds like you had a great time out there. Even if you did carry a standalone tent and a pack raft with you, what's the next big adventure for Mac?
In August, I'm going to go to Wyoming and do the Wind River High Route, which I'm excited about because that's another above tree line, fun, off-trail, scrambly thing that I've wanted to do for a while, and that's my favorite type of adventure. And then potentially doing the Pyrenees High Route on the France-Spain border in October, if it's not too late in the year. I'm not 100% sure yet. And then, I got another 100-mile race coming up in April, potentially the Moab 240 next October, and then Grand Canyon rafting again next December.
Wow, you got it all mapped out. Exciting times.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm not used to having like stuff lined up, but it's nice to have stuff lined up that I'm excited about. So that's good.
You're finally getting organized in your 30s. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Hey, Mac, you know where we are?
Oh no, we're at the point that I was supposed to be preparing for that I have 100% not thought about at all.
Hiking hacks.
You are exactly right. It's time for you to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. So what do you have for us? And you can't mention teepee.
I will say, I'll say something else, hopefully, but definitely if you don't have a fanny pack or you have never tried a fanny pack, try a fanny pack because they're awesome. But let me see. Oh, I don't know. Use I don't know, use the tools that are available to you. Like I'm really big on technology, and there's lots of people who are like anti technology on the trails, and it seems so strange that it's like people are we have these tools and there's no reason people shouldn't use them. Every time I go out, I download a ton of maps, all different kinds of map layers. There's an app called Peak Finder. I don't know if you know about that app that lets you download, it lets you like look like AR through your phone and be able to identify the peaks that are around you. It's super awesome. I'm a huge proponent of PLBs, the Garmin InReach Mini 2. They just came out with the Garmin Satellite Messenger, which is like the InReach Mini without a screen. I use that so much on the Hayduke. Get yourself a Garmin InReach Mini or whatever and use it. Like I would use it as like a proxy for the internet. So there was lots of times where I would need to find out if there was something in flood or if it was going to rain somewhere because I was going to be in like a canyon and I was looking out for flashes. So I would text from my Mini and say, "Hey, can you check and see what the weather is in this place?" Or can you check and see what the water level is in this place? And it takes the guesswork out of everything and it makes you safer. And I don't know why people would be like, "Oh no, you shouldn't use that. You should just have a map and compass and 2 sticks to make fire. And that's all you should use." No, like harness technology for good. I started using the birding app Merlin to identify birds. I don't know if you've ever used that. It's like you can download the bird packs and you just have it record the bird that you're standing next to, and it shows you what bird is making that sound. It's really cool. Use your phone, harness the power of technology as my hiking hack.
Wow, you are a Renaissance man. You're also not only you're a pack rafter, a thru hiker, a biker, ultra endurance guy. You're also a birder.
I don't know. I feel like there's a certain point. I don't want to generalize, but lots of times, especially on the longer trails, a lot of the older guys, like who have done all the trails a bunch of times, they'll know about all the trees and all the vegetation and all the things. And I'm like, I don't know about any of this stuff. It's cool that you do, but I don't. And like, I don't. It's nice to be able to be educated about where you are and know about all the different things and the plants and the rock layers and the history of the geology. It's cool.
Very cool. I agree. All right. So there you have it. We are just about done here. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Mac. I want to thank you for joining us this week. Mac, remind our listeners how they can keep up with you on social media and where can they find updates on your latest adventures.
Halfwaynowhere.com is the website. That's where I post mostly information about all the stuff I've done. Most up-to-date stuff is always going to be on Instagram, Halfway Anywhere. On Instagram, I am, still posting stuff from the Hayduke because believe it or not, there's not reception out on the trails. I think today I just posted day 31, so there's still a fair amount to go. Spoiler alert, I do make it, but yeah, those are the 2 places I hang out the most. I'm on all the other social channels Halfway Anywhere as well, but Instagram and the website are really where I spend the most time.
Got it. All right. Hey, remember to check out the Hiker Trash Radio on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at hikertrashradio@gmail.com.
Off the beaten path.
Now, unfortunately, we can't always be out on the trail. And when we're not, we need to find a way to get our adventure fixed. Mac, I'm going to ask you to share some outdoor adventure media with our listeners to help them get by. This could be a book or a movie or a documentary. We call this segment Off the Beaten Path. Any recommendations for us in terms of adventure media?
Oh God, I really don't consume a lot of adventure media, to be completely honest. A lot of times if I do, I'm always just either just bored by it because I'm like, this is something that like I have done or know exactly what's happening and it's fake. They're making it look way more dramatic than it really is. But yeah, I don't know. I like to watch Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Watching Lord of the Rings, any desire to do the TA in New Zealand?
Oh God. I have strong opinions about the TA as I do about the AT. No desire to do the TA.
Okay.
New Zealand is great. I've spent 7 months in New Zealand, but I feel like if you really want to get the most out of New Zealand, the TA is not the way to do it. There's so much more to see than the TA has to offer.
A man of many opinions. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so I wish I could share more outdoor media, but I truly don't know.
Okay.
And if you want to raft the Grand Canyon, you can read the Emerald Mile. If you want to climb, go watch Free Solo. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
Not for as much outdoor media as I produce, I'm not a big consumer of it myself.
Well, you have no time. You're 100% immersed in producing your own. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this podcast, listen to this podcast.
There you go. That's the plug we're looking for.
Yeah.
Have we not asked you?
And before we wrap things up, Mac, just one more segment for you called What Have I Not Asked You That You're Dying to Tell Us About? What do we miss today?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like we covered a lot more than I thought we were going to cover, to be honest. I thought we were only going to talk about the Hayduke, but we covered a lot. Yeah, we covered the running things. I don't know, the bike. I feel like I even mentioned the biking things, the Tour Divide. If people don't know about the Tour Divide, it's a really awesome bike route that parallels the CDT pretty much. I did the Arizona Trail on a bike 2 years ago now, and I'd love to get out on the Tour Divide or the Colorado Trail, which also lets you ride a bike. Not all PCT, you can't have bikes, like lots of places. National parks, you can't have bikes, but you can bike the Colorado Trail, you can bike the Arizona Trail, you can bike the Tour Divide. Also awesome adventures, just that I think lots of people, I don't know, try out bikepacking if you haven't been bikepacking. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think if someone specializes in just one thing, they're really limiting their options out there. We've covered a ton of ground today. We've talked about running, just like a typical marathon. We've talked about ultra running. We've talked about bikepacking. We've talked about biking. We've talked about through hiking. There's just a lot of options out there if you don't become this solely focused specialist on one aspect.
Yeah, and I think that's why people get like pigeonholed into this like ultralight, like what's your base weight? Because it's like that's like where you get funneled to, is just like lighter and lighter. And no, but it's like you can go heavier and do more. Like you can bring ropes and go climb on a trip out in the Sierra or something. You can bring a pack raft and turn a hike into a pack rafting adventure as well. Like just like the whole ultralight mindset is, yeah, sometimes it is good to carry a backpack that only weighs 2 pounds instead of 15 pounds, like the backpack itself. But it does get to a point where it just gets silly, and it's just like it doesn't really matter anymore. Like I don't know. I'm always just like, I'm just gonna go hiking with my fanny pack and just be like, I am ultralight, like, or just go naked. I don't know. Even now people are like, oh yeah, your worn weight counts towards your base weight, and like the clothing that you're with. Who cares? It's like, so you're gonna hike shirtless and a pair of tighty whities and socks? I don't know. It gets silly. So yeah, diversify is it's a good way to humble yourself too, because you start a new sport or a new activity, and you don't know anything, and you got to rely on other people to teach you or to learn from, and it's nice to remember that at one point you were also that person in the backpacking world or whatever it is that you're specializing in.
All right. We are finished. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Mac. We wish you the very best in your future adventures. Maybe your next adventure will be in your tidy whities with just a huge fanny pack. That's where you carry all your gear. You come back and
I can only hope.
Come back on the podcast and tell us about that adventure.
Will do.
Okay. Hey, as we close up today, any shout outs to friends and family?
Oh, shout out to my partner, Paulina, who she was my point of contact on the Hayduke. Every time that I needed some piece of information from the internet, just texting and be like, hey, like, what's this? What's that? Shout out to my friends Endless and QB, who were my friends that hiked the Hayduke in the first place, who gave me some beta ahead of time and got me excited about it. And yeah, probably other people who I just won't tell about this podcast, so they won't have to hear me omit them.
That's always the danger in a shout out, right? You might leave.
I know.
Yeah.
As soon as I started, I was like, oh no, I made a huge mistake.
All right. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you just spent the whole day dealing with thunder snow on the Hayduke. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck. All right, well done.
Whoa.